I can't do this! Fuck! So, I was unfortunate enough to watch the Jaden Smith anime. Yes, he has an anime. And I just wanted to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Now, Yokio is a 2017 6-episode slice of life in action, although not really, anime that takes place in North American city / mini country because for some reason it has its own politics, which is supposed to be its own version of New York, hence Yokio. New York, Yokio, but they wanted to sound as Japanese and as anime as possible, but it ended up coming off as a rip-off or Walmart version of the Boondocks. So now, this anime does its best to give us this like elegant atmosphere by starting off by claiming that it was New York subjugated to supernatural attacks. Exorcists ended up becoming a part of high-class society, which is why the boring-ass opening is literally just a slideshow with elegant classical music, which really does wonders in showing the disconnect and privilege that Jaden Smith and the creators had when creating this entire anime, because it really feels out of touch, and you can really feel the privilege that the people had when creating this entire anime, to the point that the creator or the character that is Jaden Smith addresses other people not by their names but by their jobs. For example, he calls the sales clerk as sales clerk.
And sales clerk, I'll take the suit.
Because I don't know, I guess we couldn't figure out an actual name for this person. But I mean, can you really blame Jaden? He hardly had a childhood. He was so busy discussing the geopolitical and economic status of the world at the time, so
I am very happy that I spent my childhood with more adults than I did with kids my own age. Because I was picking up more things from adults than I were from kids my own age. And I look, and I go around sometimes and I hang out with other people that are my age and they're just kind of I'm just like, dude, like, oh my god, like, can we talk about like the political and economic state of the world right now?
I mean, you couldn't really be bothered with such peasantry from Will Smith's luxurious mansion. So it only makes sense that the anime about Jaden would have to do with being part of the upper class of society. Unfortunately, any and all redeeming qualities that this anime may have was immediately stripped away because of Jaden's horrible, and when I say horrible, I actually mean Jaden's horrible voice acting that just feels like he didn't practice his lines at all. He just went into the studio, read the script, and then the directors were like, yep, let's use that. If it was a side character, right, it would be easy to write off because again, he's the side character, but again, this is the main character who can hardly read his lines and really makes it evident that he is just horrible. That's the issue with all of this. For an actor, you'd think he is, able to act, but I guess not. His skills only got worse with time, and it gets better around episode 3, although I don't really think that's the case. I think you just get so used to it being bad that it just doesn't register as horrible anymore. And I think that's genuinely the case. And that said, Jaden's audio specifically is significantly different from the audio that everybody else has in the show. As if Jaden recorded in a different booth using a different microphone from everybody else. So when you're able to pick these things up, you are able to understand how horrible the audio mixing is. And it just irks you little by little. I mean, again, eventually you do get used to it, but when starting off with episode 1 and you're listening to that, you can hear how it sounds like they were recorded in 2 different places with such horrible audio mixing that it just and it makes watching the show even more insufferable. Don't get me started on the girls that were crying in episode 1. In fact, I'm not even going to talk about it. Just listen for yourself. Now, my laughs, if I tried hard enough, my laugh could actually sound like they're crying. The funniest thing about the voice acting, or just the audio in general when it comes to this anime, is that I cannot actually believe that they used the Roblox oof noise. They used the Roblox oof noise as a genuine sound effect for this fucking anime. Why? Why? I kid you not. Take a look for yourself. Now, not to mention, Jaden is either illiterate or the script was just not proofread or checked, because we have situations like this.
No demons? Not a one. Not a one.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now, the visuals for this anime are somewhat, what's the word for it? Poor, despite it being given such a huge budget, considering that Jaden Smith was the star of this entire series, and yet the budget looks so poor, especially for a 2017 anime, that it has a worse budget than the Boondocks. It's as if everybody that was hired for this anime was inexperienced, both voice actors and animators. It is just absolutely horrible. It's a shit show when you're watching how horrible these scenes can be. It has very awkward skips, which again I would consider as a discount Boondocks. The fact that this isn't even found on most anime websites, I guess you could consider it more of a cartoon that is trying to masquerade itself as an anime. So for the sake of this entire situation, I would say it's a cartoon, and therefore it is really just a discount version of the Boondocks, because again it has very awkward scene skips. And I'm sure you've heard of this anime, or you've seen a scene of this anime where Jaden is using a discount Kamehameha, because apparently that's the only way to exercise spirits. So A for creativity, I guess. Woo, yeah, baby! However, my biggest gripe with this entire anime is the font that they use for the fucking text. Now, the thing is, I tried to reverse search this text, right, that they use, the fonts that they use for Neo Yokio, and you can't find it, because apparently it's handwritten. It's a handwritten font. So I don't know whoever handwritten that font, fuck you from the bottom of my heart, because the thing is, it's unreadable, and I don't know whoever told you that that font was elegant, or oh, that font is so fancy, you're supposed to, let's use it for the fucking air. Fuck you could have used literally any other text. I understand that they're trying to go for the elegant aesthetic, but they could have literally just used a better font, such as the same fonts as like the Vogue magazine covers. But instead, they opt to go for this barely readable, elegant scribble. It's quite literally scribble. If I put it on my TV, and I was watching it from my TV, and I paused, and I had to go like, okay, so that's how horrible it is. And the reason why we can tell that it's a handwritten font and not an actual font is because every single O that is written in a different way. So it's literally somebody went on MS Paint and just, there we go. That was my biggest gripe with this entire anime in terms of the visuals. Now, plot-wise, this anime does not provide a bang for your buck, and quite honestly, I would totally understand why people continue to pirate anime. This anime is the reason why people still continue to pirate anime, because who the fuck would pay for this bullshit? The anime in a TLDR or too long didn't read format is that this anime is about a young Jaden, I guess, fuck. I have to call him by his in-anime name. Fucking hate this name. Ugh! Okay, this anime is about a young Kaz Khan, because apparently that's... I can't do this! Fuck! Ugh! Okay, this anime is about Kaz Khan, who's heartbroken because his also rich girlfriend moved to another city. So he is the most cliche definition of an emo kid who is annoyingly pessimistic, throwing such banger lines as
win, lose, we'll all be equal in the grave.
Or
don't you have a watch? Who cares what time it is when the future's an interminable abyss of whackness?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Kaz has the most bare bones character with absolutely zero depth, and he's honestly quite a dickhead to the extent that in one of the scenes he visits a grave, his own grave apparently. So literally he has his own tombstone and it's like his birth date, and then he waits for the day he's going to die so they can just fill out the rest of it. So he goes to the grave and then he finds a man grieving over his dead wife. This old man is spraying the perfume of his dead wife's favorite brand, right? So he goes up to the man who's grieving his wife, and he's like, bro, that's just a cheap ass perfume. The fuck are you doing? Like, quite honestly, this man is just grieving over his dead wife, and he's like, you know, it could use a better perfume, you know, because that shit is cheap as fuck. Like, bro, we get it, you're rich. You do not have to roast a man. The whole point of this entire anime is Kaz being the #1 bachelor, and now every girl wants him. But now the way Neo Yokio is mentioned every 3 to 5 minutes, I want to die. I've never heard an anime or a TV show mention its name so many times in like 3 minutes, let alone in an entire show or an entire episode, unless it's like something like Pokemon or fucking Naruto. That shit was absolutely baffling.
Neo Yokio. Neo Yokio. Neo Yokio. Neo Yokio is Neo Yokio. Welcome to Neo Yokio.
Neo Yokio. Neo Yokio.
Neo Yokio? Neo Yokio.
Neo Yokio. Neo Yokio.
At some point, Kaz is called out for his shitty behavior, for being somebody who's quite literally unable to treat anybody right, and he is so out of touch with reality, and he's practically what this entire show symbolizes, an annoying display of privilege, and he ends up fighting that idea, but then also constantly feeds into the self-awareness that he is privileged and that he looks down at lower class people. It's so fucking out of touch, and I don't know whether this was intentional or not, but for some reason they also decided to throw gender politics in the weirdest way by having one of Kaz's best friends turn into a female for an episode because of a magic pool that gender swaps people. I guess it doesn't really gender swap them because it turns one of the best friends into a panda. But in the last episode, Kaz finally comes to terms with recognizing the flaw in this capitalistic society and monarchy, which leads him to get like, this. Like, let's just look at how small. That much. He develops that much character development. But unfortunately, it doesn't make his character enjoyable whatsoever, regardless. And now it's just him thinking like the average middle class citizen. For some reason, it just works, I guess. I mean, not really. And also, one of the biggest issues is that later on down the series, around episode 5, episode 6, 4, 5, 6, all of a sudden, the main arch enemy, well, I wouldn't consider him an arch enemy, let's say the main rival of the entire show, suddenly tries to get buddy with Jaden Smith with no reason whatsoever, to the point that even Kaz is confused. You're my arch enemy. Why are you suddenly trying to be friends with me? It's so fucking weird, and nobody can explain the change of heart. The anime cannot do it. The characters themselves can. It's just out in the air. Like, imagine if Vegeta was just like, Kakarot, you're my best friend now. And he's like, huh? Why? Why? Psh, I don't know. Now call me your best friend. That's quite literally what happens. Quite literally what happens. This entire anime comes off as shallow and devoid of entertainment. And it literally carries the energy of, oh, I'm good at everything because I'm the main character. And not to mention the amount of advertisements in the show from brands such as Chanel, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, etc. Like, more importantly, Toblerone, the chocolate brand, because I don't know, they're obsessed with their chocolate. You'd think with all of these ad placements that this anime would have a huge budget, when it feels like that's actually quite the opposite. Like, you'd watch this show and you kind of have this feel of like, it's rather sickening, because this entire anime has this pushed narrative of, oh, you see these brands? Only the upperclassmen would have them. So if you don't have them, are you really considered an upperclassman? Like, it really carries that type of energy, right? So it's literally trying to push this advertisement of, get these brands, even though they have zero value aside from the title that's attached to them, which makes it even worse, because there is a certain character in the show who calls out this, like, they are that self-aware that they call out this lifestyle and how insufferable it is. Then it doesn't really do much for the series. Like, this entire show just feels like a failed attempt at advertising to who knows who. But maybe they're just playing 3D chess. Maybe I'm just dumb. Maybe they're just playing 3D chess, and the actual meaning of the show is that it's a monarchy, or it's that a monarchy is extremely toxic and redundant, and that this is just a socialist experiment gone wrong, where they aim to shine light on the middle and lower class citizens by putting them in the most poorest examples. Literally, the only time they ever show somebody of middle class is when they live in the slums. That's the only time. So maybe that's what they were trying to do, and maybe I'm just being dumb and they're just playing 3D chess, and while I'm here playing like one-dimensional chess. Who knows? But again, this anime is quite literally the definition of first world problems. Now, this anime overall is very poor. Despite it being made by Netflix, a Netflix original, and starring Jaden Smith, it has some funny moments, and I'm really emphasizing some. For example, there's an artist, a singer who is from North Kakalaka. That name made me laugh, but quite honestly, that was the only thing in the entire series that made me laugh. Aside from that, it has a very small positives, and I mean very, very small. Like, as I'm saying this, I'm really trying to think of anything that was positive about this entire show, and I just can't. It's flooded by negatives, and it's unable to be so bad that it's good. Like, it's just bad. No wonder this anime hardly had any mentions aside from the fact that Jaden Smith stars in it. It has no redeeming qualities whatsoever, and quite frankly, Jaden Smith actually just makes it worse. Unfortunately, this was a wasted attempt at an anime or a TV series, and it was also a waste of a budget. Even if it had one, it was still just a waste of a budget. It is not worth the watch at all. Quite honestly, it is not worth the watch. 6 episodes, and I quite frankly say your life would be better not watching this anime. I would personally rate this anime an astounding heart to stomach 1 out of 10. I think that's fitting. It's deserving. And if you disagree, feel free to share your reasons why in the comment section. That said, if you like what you saw, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can be updated next time I post. Be ever wonderful. This has been Biscord signing out. Bye.